Hey there, everyone. Forward Progress here. I wanted to do a little disclaimer at the beginning of this episode here before you listen to it and let you guys know there's going to be some unfortunate background noise and a little bit of feedback that we got in our recording. I've done pretty much everything I know how to do when it comes to audio editing and trying to kind of mitigate that. But unfortunately, due to the circumstance in which we recorded it, since we recorded it live at TrotCon, we did get some background noise that is going to be popping up in some places. That being said, this was a fabulous episode to record, and it's something I did not want to have forever lost out there. So I wanted to present it to you, even though we still got a little bit of that unfortunate background noise and feedback within it. So I hope you are still able to enjoy because we had a delight recording it. And with that being said, I present to you the latest episode of Keeping Friendship Magic. I hope you enjoy. And welcome to the Keeping Friendship Magic podcast, the podcast that looks at all things fandom and pop culture through a lens of social science and experience. I am your host, Forward Progress, and joined with me is my lovely and talented co-host,
Nova Rose.
And we are joined today by two fantastic people that we are delighted to have join us. Returning to the podcast again is the lovely and talented you may know them as Brass Knuckles. You may know them from all of their various yoga streams, being one heck of a talented individual that I am very proud to call a friend, the wonderful Riftwing Designs.
I'm glad to be here today.
And joining us as well is a first-time guest to the podcast, a very talented artist who you can find in the vendor hall here at TrotCon this very weekend. Also, one heck of a kind and just wonderful person. Been a delight to chat with them. Baja Gryphon, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, yo, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I will tell you guys what July is at Keeping Friendship Magic is Pride Month. So we've been taking Pride just beyond just June, because let's face it here, it's always a good time to feel proud about being yourself and being comfortable with who you are. So we've been doing some various Pride activities throughout the month, and that's going to continue as part of our theme today. The overall theme of our podcast episode today is we're going to talk about representation in media and pop culture. And we're going to do that through a number of different lenses, but included in that, of course, is that of LGBTQIA plus representation, but also just kind of representation across the board and being able to find characters in media that you connect with. So I want to get our conversation rolling by discussing here, asking everybody a general question of, for each of you, can you think of a character or characters that you have personally kind of connected with in a piece of media that maybe like you felt that special connection with? I know, did I hit heavy right off the bat?
So I can start.
Okay.
A couple of minutes. For me, I mean, it's a little unconventional, but for me, it's always been Blackjack from the fanfic Project Horizons. Just like the way that she carries herself, the way that she goes about life, like wanting to constantly do better, has always rung true for me. And it's kind of become my motto at this point of it's like I'm constantly trying to improve myself, constantly trying to do better, because I think once we stop doing that, like we start to fail as humans.
Okay. Now, I know one of the things in that, in what I understand, because, okay, don't tell Fiara, I've never read any Fallout Equestria. Nobody tell Fiara. But
to be fair, it's definitely not something for everyone. I know there's a lot of people that don't like grimdark with Pony. Which
And
is
it's
perfectly
not a
fine.
matter of whether I like it or not. It's just I haven't sat down with a good book in a while, which is my own failing on myself. I really need to.
Well, it's
But
also a time sink.
but from whatever from what I do know is that that's a character who it's very interesting with how they present their sexuality. So I'm just going to ask you a follow-up question of, is that something you feel that the way that Blackjack carries themselves and what happens in their character feel like that is a representation of you and within your own sexuality and your experience? Because I don't think that they have any kind of I don't know of any kind of gender identity crisis they have or anything like that, unless there is one and I don't know about it.
From what I can go tell, Blackjack falls kind of under that like bi pan umbrella. But she's an interesting case just because the way she was grown up, like that subject is very different than like how we were raised, where for them it was like sex was like a means to an end, like, but that's kind of where it ended. So for her it was like you like there's a difference between like sex, and then there's a difference between like say love,
Right.
where it's like for
there's something about the way the attraction is portrayed and such that makes you feel like represented within the character.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of the thing that we're going with here, is that like the way that they carry themselves is in such a way that it's like I can see myself in that.
Yeah, so she actually kind of helped me figure out my sexuality, so that's why
That's fantastic.
I look up to her so much, even though she's made tons of mistakes.
We all make mistakes, though. That's part of growing up and learning. So I'll present that to anybody, to everyone else here, of like characters that you feel like something about the way they're portrayed in the medium that they're in that makes you go like that. I feel the representation in that character. Feel free to go if you like.
All right. So for myself, I think about my formative years in high school when it comes to like characters that I really, really obsessed about. And at the time, I was really big into science fiction. So we're already going to start flying around in outer space for this one. The two that came to mind specifically were Babylon 5 and Commander Ivanova, who was just a badass Russian who spoke her mind, and she was one of the few females that had like a lot of control. And at that time, I thought that was like my role model. Interestingly enough, I also had a crush on her, so sexuality was definitely involved. It's really interesting to see how sometimes you see both yourself and like what you were interested in the same person. So that was like my first real foray into idolizing in multiple ways the same person. It was really interesting to see. But just the fact that everything that she did, she was so confident about. And at the time, this was like shy little teenage me who had never had any dreams of being Brass Knuckles, the motivational speaker. And never in a million years would I have thought that I'm where I am now. So, I mean, looking back at it, I'm like, ooh, maybe that was part of it. I never really thought about that. But for me, the representation that was especially important was the woman figure that was in power. The same for like Janeway and Star Trek, right? There was a woman captain, one of the first, and she did stuff. I mean, some of it wasn't as amazing, but she did stuff and she was leading a ship, and that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask Baja, any characters that you felt kind of a personal connection with as far as representation? And I'll say this too about if there's anything where you're like you feel that maybe, and this goes for everybody, where you feel like there was a lack of representation too, that could go around.
All of the 90s.
I guess it was hard to kind of find characters personally relate to until really recently. One example that a character where I relate to a lot of their situations is Birdie from Two Gun Birdie, which two is airing right now on Adult Swim. Definitely support it. And she goes through. I do not identify as she/her or anything like that, but I've gone through a lot of the relatable struggles that she's gone through with her anxiety. Having and especially it's good having a female character that's not completely perfect. Somehow the spectrum of writing female characters, especially for cartoons and especially adult cartoons, is usually they're very over sexualized, or they're like just really bland. And I think Toucan Birdie does it very well. They actually deep down and flesh these characters out, and a lot of Birdie's anxiety, um she dealt with a person who's done a bird who's done a lot of negative things to her, and just learning how to cope. I have PTSD, and I find a lot of my struggles of what she's gone through with coping with that situation, without spoilers, um to be very empowering and something that I can relate to.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I haven't seen any of season 2 yet. I've seen most of season 1, so I can feel that, and it's that's a really good point about the way characters are written, especially female characters, and how that writing style, writing for female characters has developed. And it's an interesting thing because I want to bring up the fact of like, I can't remember another time in any time in our history where we've had so many female and/or non-binary individuals leading series, like animation series, like Tuca and Birdie, like Shira, like the Owl House. Owl House is so good, guys.
Oh yeah, so good.
um,
And
yeah, go ahead.
I think the first show where I was like, I feel bad saying this, but where I was generally invested in female characters, how they were written, was My Little Pony. Especially Lauren and the whole rest of the team making and developing these characters as characters. And it was just so executed so well. That's why we're all here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Pony
It
struck a
broke
chord.
barrier.
Yeah, Pony struck a chord with a large group of people in a way that it made it go, it's okay to present things that don't go according to the regular gender binary we had been fed for so long. And it was refreshing. Like, it honestly, it caught me off guard at first. Because I've talked about this in the past where, like, first I was like, what the heck is a brony? You know? And what's all this fuss and what's all this? And then I learned more about it, and then I started watching the show, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it. I get it. I've been waiting for this my whole life and didn't even know I was waiting for it my whole life, you know?
Yeah. Like I half of my life now is dedicated to just G4 alone. It's crazy to think about how I'm still here, how many of us are from the beginning or even way before that. It's honestly incredible, of the impact that's made, um on cartoons in general. Like I've read that it helped revitalize Canadian animation, and it's just so crazy how um that happened.
Oh, yeah.
Another character, it's from this very underrated show, and I would recommend those to watch it on Netflix. City of Ghosts. Um, it's a very relaxed, really good vibe show. It's about these four. I think it's 4 or 5 kids. They're like a little ghost adventure club, and they travel all around California and the Los Angeles area. And it goes deep into the culture that surrounds Los Angeles and California in general. And there's a lot of different representation that you don't normally see in media. Um, and uh, one of the characters, their name is Thomas. This is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, where this show is mainly targeted towards kids, like little kids, but it's honestly really enjoyable to watch. And it's sad that Netflix kind of cut the cord, so to say.
Yeah.
But they say, "Hi, I'm Thomas. I go by they them pronouns," and I was like, "What? Did it just happen?" I started tearing up because it's like that came out of nowhere. Whoa, what the heck? Especially someone who identifies as non-binary, it was so cool to just a character just literally right in front of the screen, nothing's hiding it, nothing. Just they're talking to the viewer directly. Like it wasn't just a secret thing in the background. It straight up, hi, I go by they them pronouns. It was such a strong moment in my heart that you know I also think about how you know, corporations are not being too kind to the shows that do tend to break the boundaries. Um but honestly, like I don't like having yourself represented like that when it's just crazy.
Oh my gosh,
It's such a
yeah.
heart-stopping moment, and I don't know if y'all talked about the Blues Clues. Pride videos.
Oh no.
That made me so happy.
Have you seen them by any chance?
Mm-hmm. It just,
That's definitely another tearjerker. That
yeah. I think that's the big thing, and I think you hit the nail on the head. A big reason why I wanted to do this episode is about how important representation is and how much it touches, I think, all of us to see someone on screen, whether it be in animation, in film, live action animation, film, TV, whatever it is, to see someone and go like, that's someone like me. And it can take so many different facets of things where, you know, like there's a lot of things that are, you know, obviously we've been talking about having that LGBTQIA plus focus, but it goes even deeper than that, where like you like things where if you have like, for example, like I have clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder. I've had it like my entire life, and um watching BoJack Horseman was an experience unlike any other, because it was one of the best representations I've ever seen of a portrayal of somebody dealing with depression and not knowing how to deal with it. Oh my gosh, that just would hit me. It just hit me inside, and I went, this is what I've been trying to explain to people for years. And it made me feel like heard. Made me feel like, you know, like it's okay to have this or feel this way, because there are others out there who are experiencing it too, and it's being shown through some form of media. Because I think without like media representation helps the world to understand what's going on, because there's that thing of, I can explain to you what I'm going through, but I can only explain so much of what my brain can output. When somebody can put it in a visual medium like that, it takes it to a whole nother level, I think. I do want to get back. I did have my one LGBTQ representation I did want to mention, well, two. First of all, the fact that we had, it was a little bit in the background, but the fact that we had Lyra and Bon Bon get together and get married in Pony just made me ecstatic. I just, if for anybody watching who doesn't already know, Bon Bon / Sweetie Drops is my favorite pony, and just seeing the little things that they kept throwing in the series with her and Lyra together just warmed my soul so much. But I also wanted to talk about Benson from Hippo and the Age of the Wonder Beasts. Benson, I don't want to spoil things, but there is a scene where this character has, basically a female character is thinking, maybe I have a crush on this guy, or they're really nice and I want to say something, and he has to go like, oh, you know, I'm sorry, but I'm gay. And it's just, the fact that he says the words, I'm gay, was like, that in and of itself is like big. And I remember being a scared teenager, not being able to get those words out of my mouth. And seeing somebody being able to say that was powerful. And also knowing there are those moments, because a lot of us have to hold it within. I think it was a lot worse when I was growing up, you know. It's gotten better, but it's still not perfect, and we still have a lot of progress that needs to be made. But you know, having to hold that in of who you are um, and then having somebody maybe develop feelings for you and such, and then having that awkward moment of like, sorry, but that's not how I do. It just, I was like, this is a real moment that they just captured, and it's great. And also, hashtag Troiler for life, or Troyson for life. I mean, Troyson for life. Benson and Troy, shootest dang animation couple, if you ask me.
They're really cute.
Yeah. So,
I wanted to add something.
yeah, absolutely.
And I think this goes with all the characters that we've talked about so far. And one of the reasons why My Little Pony Gen 4 was so popular is because the characters were not just that girly, cutie, whatever stereotype. They were relatable, they were real. They had flaws, right? I always use the song We're Not Flawless. It, a lot of them, like Bojack, right? They have issues. They have beasts. They have demons. Like for Ivanova, she like got drunk one night and was talking about these horrible nightmares she had. But that's what made them real. Having characters where you can see yourself in them and understand that they have that courage and maybe you can have that too. That is something new that's only been around for what, the last 20 years?
Yeah.
Less?
Maybe less, yeah.
You know, it's interesting. When I was in college, I wrote a paper about, there was this kind of portrayal of, I think around the mid to, or like early 2000s, like around turn of the century, late 90s into early 2000s, there became this very big trend of series where your protagonist was some youthful figure that was trying to figure out their life. And I think it was indicative of a lot of things, of realizing the reality that is coming of age and how much gets involved within it, and also being able to tell stories of characters with flaws and portray them in a proper manner and such, and having them grow in a way that felt more organic. And because we all do need to grow, and the other thing too is we're not always right. That's a big thing. And identity
huge.
identity is such a thing where like you might you might start like kind of developing like, what is my identity? And it's kind of scary because let's face it, you know, we live in a world where labels are often thrust upon us, and it's hard to figure out which label fits because there's so many qualities that get attributed to it. So it's like figuring out where you fall within that there, and feeling that societal pressure for it is tough. And you want to fit in, though. You want to fit into one of those, but you also want to find what's you. And I think that the more we get this representation, especially characters that mess up, get things wrong, and their identity in like season 5, season 6 of a series is not what their identity was in season 1, is so powerful to see.
Yeah. And if I can call out the chat, so Ed of Jville has said something really good, and Baja replied. So I'll kick it over to Baja to talk about her response, or their response. Sorry, I didn't do pronouns at the beginning. So keeping Ed of Jville said, keeping this modern trend in incorporating a wider swath of inclusivity in characters, both in terms of orientation and identity, as well as those coping with the social and mental health issues, can only help to spawn more content in the future. And media and art should be both entertaining and enlightening. And then it says, never underestimate the power of film when in the hands of the right writers and the right studio. And so Baja, go ahead.
Hi. So I was just checking the chat. I'm in way too many Discord servers, so it was a little hard to find it. But media affects us in so many ways that it's just unintentional. We don't realize it at first. And it depends on person to person. Certain media might, like My Little Pony for all of us. We're all attending this online con. Like it it's we care about. We process that. We enjoy the morals. We enjoy a lot of things about the show that led us here now. And media can heavily affect our choices in life. Even if it's unintentional. Like how a lot of like I really like the concept of like transformation in shows, yeah, and that can sometimes lead into like things about identity, like gender identity, and it's like those things aren't connected, like usually, like they're not directly connected, but um sometimes it can lead to thoughts about thinking about that sort of thing. And the shows like BoJack and the Midnight Gospel that make you think about life, that makes you think in a different perspective and outside the box. Like it promotes critical and deeper thinking. And like a lot of people don't realize how much media has kind of controlled our lives in a good, there's good ways. Um
Both.
yeah, there's good and bad ways, but if we have more of this positive representation in the right hands, around like, I don't know how many years ago, but a long time ago, like people are like, "Oh, you want gay characters in your show?" Well, like complaining about, there's people that are like, "There's not enough us in the media." This could be any sort of minority group. It's like there's not enough us in this media, and people, you're like, well, then make your own. Well, guess what? They're making their own now, and you know, stuff like Kipo. That was a show which literally, Rad was literally told, don't ever send us this again. Like this was a very big exception. Like usually all the categories of what Kipo was kind of like to any sort of streaming, to any sort of broadcaster of any kind. It's like no, don't do that. Nah. But shows that do break boundaries and the amount of corporate loop, like they had to jump through a lot of hoops to get stuff like the Blue's Clues videos, and to get stuff like Steven Universe, and representation like in Kipo and City of Ghosts and all these shows that start to have more LGBTQ representation. And it's just the more that people are able to see it, and the more diverse the media that we have, I feel like the more I feel like it can help. I'm sorry, I'm bad at talking. But like usually a lot of bad ideals, like a lot of negative ideals, are pressured like by generation, by their parents. People teach their kids, oh, that person's different and that's not okay, and it's not okay. I don't like when people someone like I'm a wheelchair user, for example. Like, oh, that person's a wheelchair, you'll make fun of them, they're not correct, they're broken, and that's not okay. And I believe if these shows are able to exist and to see more people like me or like others, maybe they will start to have more critical thinking, and like, maybe my parent or guardian or whatever isn't right. Maybe I should be more accepting of my peers around me. Hopefully creating more of a generation where diversity is more socially accepted.
Yeah.
But that is a hope. I know it plays a small part. There's still going to be people who are going to spread those ideals, even though we don't want that to happen, because that creates a lot of hate crimes and a lot of negative stuff, and it's sad to out. And by having these shows, even if it's just one character, it's just one step towards a better.
Absolutely. I think there's a thing, and it's part of the whole thing about representation and how you get it right, because there are series that are more kind of, I would say, allegorical in nature about their representation, where so one thing that I've been fascinated to read about, and I think you've read some about it, Rose, is if you go back and watch the Matrix films as a transgender allegory, which is a whole, like, I mean, we don't have time to do the deep dive into it, but it's interesting and fascinating and makes you look at the films in a whole different way. But at the same token, it's like you have the other part where it's like, gosh, I just want something that says here is a trans character and they just are too. And I guess that's the question we've posited in the past, where it's like, what does this proper representation look like, and does it differ based on what it is? Because it's like things like, especially for transgender individuals, it's like at the core, it's like you are a woman, so it's like that's who you are. You are a woman. So, but at the same token, you had to fight your struggles to get here. So it's like, is the proper representation showing somebody struggling, or is the proper representation showing somebody who just is and it's not an issue? And then how does it come? There's so many layers.
Interesting.
For me, the perfect representation, and I think I might have mentioned this in the podcast before, the perfect representation for me as far as trans goes is Queen's Gambit. The reason being is, I think in the first 2 episodes, I want to say, they got a trans actor, and to go basically play a vocal teacher in an all-women school, and I think it was set in the 1950s.
I didn't see it yet. I'm sorry.
Something like the 1950s. It's in a period where you don't really see people, especially heavily.
It wasn't accepted back then, so people weren't
especially
as open.
Especially in a heavily Christian school.
Not to say anything against.
Nothing
right.
to say, but it's
Who is fake who?
So, but it's I think basically she was just an actress playing a character.
So I guess that's the thing, is at the end of the day, and I guess that becomes that thing about, is that kind of that ultimate goal, I guess, when you think deep in the future of the characters just are, and they don't have to make the point of identifying themselves, I guess, is the ultimate goal. But we have to get there, and there's got to be steps to get there first.
I think, of all things, Big Mouth actually, newest season? I think it was the newest season, had a trans character. And they more went towards the aspect of these are the challenges that especially trans youth have to go through. And I felt like that's fantastic. They handled it really well. And there's places for that, but then at the same token, there's places for just hire trans actresses or actors. We exist. We need work.
Well, and I guess this is the thing too, to posit out there. So, in the early 2000s, there was a show called Queer as Folk on Showtime that I watched a little bit of, and I actually stopped watching it at some point. I think I watched all of season 1, and at first it was oh my gosh, they're telling real, hard, down, dirty, gay stories, to be blunt. But then then as it kept going on, I'm okay, every single week it's the end of the world is pending for all the gays, almost. It sounds weird, but it was that's how it felt to me. And I'm I don't think this is what I want, because it just doesn't feel real to me anymore. So it's that striking that balance between what is real and what is needed to put on screen, so to speak. Does that make sense? So kind of, I guess, positing that out there of is proper representation, in a sense of there's kind of that moment, or maybe some moments where it's it makes the statement, but overall the rest of the character is just the character. Is that what it means? Is that where we're at, or is there something else we should be pursuing? And I'll just get everyone's thoughts on that kind of idea of it, because I don't have a right or wrong answer. It's kind of that search of because sometimes it can be difficult to find a balance between wanting to make sure you do the right representation. And it's actually funny, because before we started the podcast episode, somebody mentioned Token. I think you did mention Token from South Park, and I thought oh my gosh, because Token from South Park like, the name is Token because he literally is the token black character. It's a mock on having to have a token character just to put them there. So it's like like having a character like is throwing a gay character in just to have a gay character, like that doesn't feel right, you know? And then like it's how do you put someone in a proper way that makes it work for the viewers?
No, that's a fantastic point. I think when we talk about it in that frame, it should be about the story, right? It should be about what is the thing that you're trying to tell. And every person has those stories that they should be telling, and those characters should fit in naturally. If you're trying to get that token in just to say, hey, representation, that's not authentic. That's not authentic at all. And if the story requires you to have something, you can put it in. But then they also, on the other side, right? What if the story didn't have those things in it, but at the end, it showed some representation that people took from the characters, like Luca? Question mark.
Ooh. I saw you had a point to make, and then I want to go on Luca.
Just a quick one. I think a good representation of what you're saying is Luce from Owl House. You know, like she's
We're a couple episodes behind, by the way. So
I mean, this is just
if we've been getting more Lumity moments that I haven't seen yet, hold off. I don't want spoilers. It's coming to Disney Plus soon.
Well, I'm not even going that far. I'm just saying, like, she's Hispanic, and
Yes.
like it's just like, especially in the very first episode, like it's just cool just seeing her just interact with her mom, and like every now and then like she talks to her mom in Spanish, and it's just like it's cool just having that representation, like even if it's something so trivial.
I mean, I wouldn't call it trivial at all. I would call it quite the opposite. And I think that's the point of something that might feel trivial to one person is the exact thing that's going to make somebody else go, I feel felt.
It was so natural for her to speak Spanish and to show that side of her without forcing it.
Yeah.
Like they like it didn't feel just like a token character, just being there.
So, gosh, I have so many directions I want to take the conversation into now. This is the problem. That's it. 2-hour podcast. Shut everything else down. No. Okay.
But no, Starkly would do it.
She's done that. Anyway, Luca. Let's talk Luca. I don't know if everyone in this room has seen it or not. We did.
I have.
You have not? Okay.
I have.
Oh, you have?
No, I have.
Oh, you have
I've seen the little Italian boys. Yes, I have.
Yes. Okay, so Luca's an interesting case because I feel like
Spoilers
they
for
don't.
Luca?
Possible spoilers for Luca. Okay. I'm going to try and talk about it as openly as I can without spoiling. They could be gay, they could not be gay, and I'm okay with it either way. Because I feel like there is the story, the way it's told, you could look at it as like it is a coming of age tale. It absolutely is. There are definitely layers in there that I could see, like a young me and the first guy that I ever, had a thing for and getting close and stuff, but not realizing what it meant at the time. So it's like one of those things, because they are pretty young characters, and granted, I've met people who are really young and come out and are sure of it. So it's like, I hesitate to say they're too young to understand fully, but I think that's that thing about identities, it does develop too. So it's where, like, the piece like that, I feel the way it's presented, the story that it's presented, I think it's good for it. I think it's actually better for it to not come out and say one way or the other. And people can agree or disagree with this, but I think it's actually better that way because it's told in such a way that I feel like it gives it more universal appeal, like more universal connectivity, because I feel like you can be straight and connect with it, you can be gay and connect with it, you could be bi, pan, etc. You could see layers of various things where you can connect with it. Also, come on, like, fun TF movie, of course we were going to be into it. And I love the character designs from it, but that's not what this episode's about. But I mean, that's kind of my takeaway. I don't know how everybody else feels. I'll leave it kind of hanging there for everyone else.
I thought it was just a fun bi allegory.
It could be. I could see that.
I don't know if that was the intention, but that was what I got out of it, at least.
I mean, I think it had things to say about growing up, and I feel that's the thing about growing up and identity is there's so many layers to identity, because there's also the fact that like you have this sea creature coming to land and the metaphor, and I think this is part of like why a lot of stories that do TF. TF standing for transformation for those who don't know. But transformative stories like that, like stories that feature characters that transform, I feel a lot of times have to deal with being a part of one world and having to deal with the world outside of that. You know, like, and you could look at it as I am gay going into a straight person's world, or I am, Hispanic going into a white person's world, or I am there's so many different things, or like I am disabled going into an able-bodied person's world. There's different layers within that, and I think we all kind of naturally start to kind of have that, I don't know, that there's that natural like thought of what if I could do that too, that applies in so many different ways.
Definitely a lot of exploration in that sort of.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And especially like choosing one world or the other, when at times it's okay to have both. It's okay to like switch between. You don't have just one singular identity, one single.
Oh, absolutely. It's like shout out. First of all, shout out to all my gender fluid friends. Yeah, because let's face it, that's that thing about. We've discovered more and more as time goes on. Sexuality and gender it's not fixed. It's more of a flowing spectrum, and where you fall one day might be different than where you fall the next. And we're discovering it more and more, and developing more and more. And I know, Rift, you and I had a short conversation at one point about like kind of the idea, like the advent of the internet age has allowed us to explore that much more, because there's terms for things now that didn't used to be, and we've been able to explore identities in ways we never thought possible before. I mean, if you want to expand upon that, I know you had kind of said something to me about it, so I'll let you expand.
Okay, well, I'll keep it with the Luca theme. Again, without spoilers, it's about goal setting in the movie where they're trying these new things. They're trying to find their identities. And part of that is by setting a goal that they think is their goal. But in the end, it was, there's a journey that counts, right? And then they realize what their real goals are, right? What is it that you want in this world, the world where you can be yourself? And that, the fluidity, right? I think is more normal than not. Like nobody stays the same. You aren't the same person you were yesterday. I'm definitely not the same person I was before COVID. I mean, all of us change. And whether that's sexual attraction, your own personal identity, your life, your friends, your family, all these things change. But it's not against, right, socially as accepted to discuss. Like when you go home, your parents still think you're the same person you were when you left. And the last time I went home to see my parents, my mom's like, I feel like I have to get to know you all over again. But she was willing to learn about what I had learned. And that is something that I definitely don't take for granted. And so many more people would be so much better off if they realized that listening to other people and discovering where they are in their journey is probably more important than the journey itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This actually, I'm going to bring it back to Pony again, because, we are at a Pony convention. This made me think of the episode Surf and or Turf, which was one of our first Terramar episodes, where had like feeling that pressure to choose between living in the sea or living on land, and realizing at the end, why do I have to choose? There's so many great things about both. and I can live my best life by exploring both parts of who I am, because they both are part of who I am. Oh my gosh, what a great metaphor.
Well, that's why, like, when I was choosing my OC about like what creature I wanted to go make it, I was originally going to go with Hippogriff because, you know, transition. Like, I felt like the whole transition between ocean and air, it was like, you know, like that kind of spoke true for me. But I ultimately decided on like Kieran because that's focuses on another aspect of my personality. Plus, they're cute. So.
You make an adorable Kieran, honey. Aww. Anybody who watches this knows I'm sappy. So, gosh, we are like already okay. We have about 15 minutes. So I know, right? It's just it goes so quickly.
After
so
is 10. Right?
10 o'clock. Yeah. So let's talk about this. There has been obviously a big expanse in portrayals of various types of characters, obviously LGBT in particular, but I feel like there's also a lot more focus on racial and ethnic representation lately, which I'm delighted as heck to see, because I've said it before, I will say it again, diversity is what makes life fun and interesting. If we were all the same, life would be boring and we would just all fight all the time. And I just, you know what? No, like give me all of the diversity, give me all of the inclusion. But like, so let me ask everybody, where do you guys think we're at culturally at this point here? You know, we're making strides, but I think we can also do better. So it's like culturally kind of putting ourselves in that thought bubble of like where we each would like to see us kind of get to, maybe within the next 5-10 years, whatever, as we develop here.
Like as society?
Well, I mean in media specifically.
After all, we do live in one.
Yeah, we do live in a society. Yes, somebody watch Joker. Okay, I love you, honey.
Such a good movie.
This kind of goes back to TF transformation in a way. Though I do enjoy transformation films, the fact that the majority of people, I cannot speak for people of color, but noticing that the main protagonists in almost every animated film recently has been them transforming into an animal or into a non-human being just to learn a lesson. This is not bad in a way, but how common it is, I feel like it's becoming a bit of a problem because it's hard because Spider-Verse is one of the films that doesn't do that, or they rely on an animal sidekick. It was either one or the other. As I'm happy to see like transformation in media, I hope that there'll be more steps to just having like stories of people of color just being able to be themselves, not having to be something else for the international markets or whatever. I'm hoping a little bit of the new I cannot pronounce it right. Enchanto, the new Disney film.
Encanto, I believe I want to say
I
it
think
is.
so,
Yeah, I remember
Hopefully.
seeing it there, where she transforms into that adorable. Oh my gosh, so adorable. But anyway.
But it's just I do, like, again, I do enjoy this, but it's hard for I cannot speak again I in that category, but it's hard. Like, what if every single main character in media that was like who I am just gets turned into an animal and gets treated like, oh, wacky animal land hijinks ensue, and it's like, where's the stories about my culture? Where's the stories about our daily lives? And I think um something that I wish was more happening was like the barber scene in Soul. If
Yes.
you minus the spoiler aspect that happens, there should be more scenes like that. I believe. Instead of just animal or non-human problem, then it's just hard because it happens so often. If it didn't happen as often, then there wouldn't be such a problem. But like with recent characters like Joe Gardner and Lance from Spies in Disguise, um, it just I just hope to see more real stories and them not bringing on someone that represents that the person they're trying to represent like last minute. They should be coming first and have as much involvement with the production as possible. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, no.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes
Sorry.
100% sense. And I think that's the other thing I want to throw in quick is this is not just talking about the focus has been on on-screen representation. But I want to quickly mention here we need more diversity in our casting, more diversity in our not just casting roles, but diversity in our directors, our crew members that on all these series. There's so many things where I get to talk. Like I've talked to people that are in some way some form of minority, and
Big,
hearing the things that they have to go through.
big shout outs to our friends over on Pony at Brian Dochois and Asia.
Oh yeah, well that's one of the people that I think about because obviously I hate that I have to say these words out loud, but with the uptick in anti-Asian American violence that has happened earlier this year, and thankfully we're having conversations we should have been having for a long time. But I was attending a kind of a little like seminar, and Brian was there, and a few other Vincent Tong, who we know from Pony and so many other great things, and they were talking about them going for roles and what it was like and how they'd sometimes have to feel like they were almost not being true to their real heritage because they had to fit the mold just to get a job type of thing. And it just hurts inside. And I don't, it's not anything that I've experienced myself, but it's like hearing that people are going through that. It's like knowing we can do better. We can do better than this, and we can be more inclusive. I know we're getting low on time, so let me say this. I'm just going to kind of open it up to everybody for any last thoughts you had about representation now, or where we're going in representation in media.
I guess I can go first.
Okay.
I feel like we've come a very, very long way. Like even within the past decade, it's incredible. Like I know we've been watching everyone watching some films from like the 90s and even the aughts, and it's like it's cringy,
Yeah.
for lack of better words.
It's hard at times.
It's hard, and like a lot of the movies and the shows that like I thought fondly of, it's just like now they're marred by jokes that they thought were okay. So I'm very happy that we're getting so much more inclusion. But at the same token, like we have a long way to go, but we're making the steps. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll go next. So my last thoughts, I really want to just scream down with capitalism and the machine, right? And I do think that we need to have another episode with the Rift Ponies folks talking about specifically representation, failures and successes. Like you could talk about the female Ghostbusters, or you could talk about Black Panther. But we're not going to do that. So stick a pin in that. That'd be really fun. But specifically, when you're talking about hiring and equity and equality of pay, roles, jobs, right? Even for anybody. The problem is that when people don't have an opportunity that is equal to an opportunity of someone of a different type, right? That's where it doesn't happen. So the only thing that we can do, right? Speak out, speak up, do what we can, promote those values, and consider those opportunities for those of us that are in better positions to allow folks that maybe you wouldn't give on the first thought that opportunity to do those things. Because you can't get in the door if the door isn't even open. And that's what we're still fighting for.
Absolutely. Baja, any final thoughts on our subject at hand?
I think with this representation, I know money for these corporations are a huge factor. I think representation is way more important. I know they always think about the international markets, and that's why it has to be a lot of changes. Things have to be very subtle, and I hope for a day that that doesn't have to be a problem. That we can just be able to represent everybody. There's so many people that have not even been represented. In fact, City of Ghosts, there was like native cultures that were represented that I've never heard of before because I was never exposed to that. I've run many diversity training. I've met people who just never seen someone with a different color skin. I've met people who never met someone who was non-religious. Like, I've met people who have never seen a disabled person, and it's crazy. And media is so important to pass on these messages to the next generation or to us currently. So it's so important, and I just hope we can get there in our lifetime. It's been a long journey, and we're not, even though we're making progress, we still need to keep it pushing further each time. We need to pressure them, not pressure, but we need to get more people into the industry to help make this happen. And because if we don't, then it's gonna stay stagnant, or maybe even get less. We need to open up those doors,
Absolutely.
to everybody. And if you out there want, make stuff, make comics, make animations, make stories, make anything, because that representation can change someone's life forever. So do that, guys, if you can. Let them be out there. Know that you're here. Know that your friend, anybody.
Absolutely.
It's up to all of us to create, justice for ourselves, but also help others with us, and help tell their stories by communicating with them, by working with them. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, very well said. So we are just about out of time. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today, everyone in the chat. I haven't been able to watch, so my apologies. Normally I can keep an eye on it more. But man, I could have talked about this topic for hours. But I want to thank each and every one of you who tuned in, was in the chat. I want to thank our special guest today, Baja Gryphon. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a delight to have you. Where can people find you?
Hiya, Baja. You could find me on Twitter, Baja Gryphon. I'm also on a bunch of other social medias, Baja Gryphon. I also did art for Fiora's book, actually, for the third book. So if you ordered that, you'll see my cool art. Be able to support that. My work is also featured in the Traveling Pony Museum. Go check out that and the many other artists that do work for TPM. And yeah, I have my own shop in the vendor hall. My wonderful partner made these awesome resin slime figures. So if you want to represent your faction,
awesome.
it has a cool little buddy in your D&D games. Definitely, he's been working so hard on them. So I hope you guys really do appreciate what we have to offer.
I saw them
And
earlier. They're so cool.
If you're going to Everfree, I can't wait to see you there.
Yay! And thank you once again for joining us for Riftwing Designs. Always a pleasure to have you.
Right. And it's easy for me. You can find me as at Riftwing Designs everywhere, and also at 7:45 a.m. Eastern, I will be hosting Choose Your Own Adventure Yoga. So it's going to be a really fun time. You get to pick how easy or hard the class will be. So you got to be there to participate. And you can find me on YouTube, again, everywhere as Riftwing Designs.
I'm so excited. I've got my plan for the morning. I don't know how because I have to go really soft because my panel is right after your yoga, so I might just do a mini soft set, but I'm tuning in. So thank you again, Miss Nova Rose, for being here. Where can people find you?
People can go find me over on Twitter at Nova Roselia. I post art, and then lately I've been streaming with amazing people. I've been streaming Genshin Impact. Hopefully that will increase in like the amount I stream and the number of games I stream.
And I believe you're Nova Brasilia on Twitch as well, right?
Yes, you can find me at twitch.tv at Nova Rosella or
/Nova Rosella.
Nova Rosella. I'm still getting used to the whole Twitch thing. But yeah, no, we stream. For now, we stream Mondays and Wednesdays at around 10. Come watch us. We have a fun time, just kind of goofing around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome.
I hope to see you there.
And lastly, I once again am forward progress here. If you like what we do here at Keeping Friendship Magic, you can support us by visiting us on by becoming a patron at patreon.com/KFM. Every dollar that goes into our Patreon goes to keeping this project alive, keeping the podcast funded, etc. Also, if you love us, if you aren't already subscribed to the podcast, you can find our podcast hub at kfm.buzzsprout.com. And we are on YouTube, youtube.com/c/keeping friendship magic. And if you want to follow whatever I randomly decide to post on Twitter, I'm on Twitter at keepfriendmagic. But as always, thank you everybody for everything, and remember to keep friendship magic out there in the world. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great rest of your convention.
A huge thank you to our patrons, SamuDash, Jason Kuzmak, Statman Dan, NeverendingNerd, Riftwing Designs, and Frenchie McHugh. Without your support, this project wouldn't be possible.